came first, and formative summative was kind of the genesis, as I understand it, of evaluation. And I also got to thinking, when you were talking about the swing dance movement, and all of a sudden people who weren't, mainstream citizens were the ones who were dancing and making music. I think that's very much how it is in participatory evaluation, kind of anywhere. And the dance that reminded me of that was square dancing, where, it very much leads you through this process of dancing, even if you don't know what you're doing. And essentially, participatory evaluation to me is kind of an apprenticeship for non-evaluators to get them thinking in more of an evaluation mindset so that we can create an evaluation together instead of just the evaluators are the ones who do it, which I think is central to developmental evaluation.
The wonderful thing about metaphors is they're rich, and you can go a number of different ways with them. So as a teaching opportunity, I really appreciated the different ways that you were seeing and the different facets of it. For example, just from my own perspective, when the one clip of the music came on, and you kept having different voices, different musicians coming in and adding their voice to the richness of the evaluation dialogue, and then it got bigger and different and more grand. And so that was another aspect of that evaluation, or sort of that metaphor that went a different direction. Your thoughts about anything?
I don't know that this was explicit in the presentation, but I think implied in all of these evaluation perspectives is that during the evaluation, human beings themselves change. It's not just the context or the layout of the land that changes. As the human beings change, they also influence that context. And because developmental evaluation is so relationship-oriented, I think it's really important to understand not only that people change, but to understand how they change and how they interact. And I guess you can see this a lot in the dance metaphor, probably most clearly, where even though the dances were choreographed that we saw, there was still room where people could have done differently had they chosen to. And had they done that, I feel confident that the expertise exhibited in these dancers and performers would have made it such that the dance would have gone on, the evaluation would go on. And I liked Fred's presentation because I see not just evaluation, but life as incremental progress. We survey the landscape at any given time, we change, the landscape changes, we make a decision, and then we reevaluate, and then we reevaluate. People have evaluation lives that we underestimate sometimes. As evaluators, we go in thinking, like Anarchy said, we know these people, we know what they're like, we know what they're going to do. And people have a great way of surprising us, which is, like you said, makes it fun. It's a little different from the natural world, and that makes it fun. But it's important to remember that people change, not just context.
Did you want to go? And then we'll go here.
Yeah, and apologies, I walked in just a few minutes late, so I may have missed this, but I'm interested in what course structure led to these three wonderful metaphors and
This was
really
an
rich engagement.
introductory course of evaluation. We're trying to introduce them to different approaches to evaluation, and we used a mind map metaphor activity to help the students kind of understand the different approaches, and they were asked to read Michael's developmental evaluation as kind of a framework, but also another text on another approach, and then kind of compare, contrast, and use a metaphor to understand those different aspects.
Is your assignment available? Is it supposed to?
You know what?
Share?
We could ask Dr. Williams to
It's a pretty formative thing, but I'll pass that on to David.
Well, we can
Put
include
it
that.
up in
We're
the-
going to upload everything we did onto the AEA library, and
Yeah.
so we'll include that.
Kind of a description of the
I'm
task.
interested in the assignment that led to the mind map metaphor
Yeah.
experience, and then also the quality with which each of the three of you presented the second book that you chose, and how did that work in a classroom? You had, I don't know how many students, 15 students or something, reading each a separate book, and how did you
It was messy, wasn't it?
get a quality
Yeah.
experience of that and share it with your other classmates?
Yeah, it was a pretty small class, which helped. There was only like
Six.
5 or 6 of us, but
Oh, wow.
but yeah, we'll
Doesn't
include
work
the
as
course
well when you have
subject.
27. But, yeah, you had a comment too?
Just a quick comment, but first to thank you for what was really a delightful and engaging and really rich conversation. And particularly Pamela, I just kind of was giggling to myself a little bit because often I see as an evaluator, when I work with an organization, they come in expecting and wanting that formative, summative piece. And it's interesting, the clip you chose, they're actually going through the steps, but in the Austen novel, Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth Bennet are arguing throughout the whole. They loathe each other at that point, but they're going through those. They're going through those steps, and they finish their dance, and they, head out of the room. And I think it's, just another layer of the metaphor that what we're really trying to do with developmental evaluation is really change that relationship and change the result. That you're not just going through the steps of the dance, and it's complete, and you bow, and you run in opposite directions. So.
On that one clip, I love that one too, because when she first, I saw a lot of the evaluation practice that I did early on, and you go in and you formally do this, and the dialogue, you couldn't quite hear it, but there's two pieces that I love. One was, she says, well, you do this, and then you count the number of chairs and how many people and comment on this. And I thought, yeah, that's what I'm doing. And then the other thing was, he says to her, is this too rigorous for you? And so, it really spoke to me. And then the other piece, the appreciative. We do a lot of evaluation in schools, and right now, one of the things that I really am kind of aware of is that we bash schools and teachers too much. That they're doing a wonderful thing, and some of the dances that they make are, like when I looked at that, I felt emotional. It's a wonderful piece. And when some of the teachers deal with some kids and make a difference in their life, it's wonderful. And you should appreciate that. And yet what do? We point out all of the negative things that aren't happening and they're not above average and all of these other things, but they're making a difference in individual lives. And individual teachers are. So, I saw a lot of that there as well. But kind of another metaphor for my own personal life. Other comments?
I just want to compliment Pamela. You just brought a lot of air in my evaluation with your metaphor. You seem to be a lot of just get out of the framework sometimes and see what happens and just not so strict. Just your hands are strong on following your steps. So you really gave me some air. Thank you very much. Just a compliment.
Last chance. Thank you very much, and thank you, Michael, for being here.
Nicely done.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We appreciate all of you. Excellent. They were all very good.
Better try a little bit.